is this about Parkland dedication, and this is something that Vice Chair De Palma and I wanted to bring to the board. So I'm sure everybody's aware that there was an item related to Parkland dedication that came before council this week. So I just want to just go back to kind of what the Parks Board itself went through in the past. So not last month, excuse me, we had a special meeting, and during that meeting, we got a presentation on Parkland dedication that was so we could learn about the value of the ordinance and how crucial it was to the Parks Department that we were able to purchase land, that we were able to make improvements, and we were able to have more equity across our city because of the dedication. And we also saw a film that also let us see exactly how the ordinance had impacted our city, and again, reinforced the value and importance of that. And then this month, we got an email from Sammy with a copy of a newspaper article that mentioned that staff had decided to ask for a delay of the fees for that, and to kind of revisit the process, the funding process, because there was concern about developers being unhappy because they felt like they didn't get enough notice or something. And so, as everybody knows, that didn't come before us. We didn't have a say in that. The way we found out about it, I found kind of disturbing. And so it raised some concerns, and I don't want to take any action on the ordinance, on this right now, but I would like to hear if other people had any comments, and I also would like to allow Vice Chair De Palma to speak. I know that he actually was part of the working group that came up with the changes to the ordinance in 2016 and brought together the different stakeholder groups that created where it is right now. And it has, obviously, as we know, it's been very effective. So I'm going to let you speak, Vice Chair De Palma, and then we can go around the room.
Great. So I appreciate it. In the letter, there was the positive mention that the increase reflects the rising costs of real estate in Austin, in which has thereby substantially increased the cost of Parks and Recreation Department to acquire new parkland. So that was the positive. Then it went into the not giving communication relating to this process for like the Parkland dedication fee increase, which went up to about 125%, I think is what was ultimately calculated. For me, what was really concerning was, for me, it was an argument. And argument from folks not inside the department. I don't think it was our department that made this argument at all. But, when you look at the fees, if you are in the business community and you are doing business directly or indirectly with the city of Austin or any public entity, you are always checking your fees. You're checking your capital projects. If you do that, that sort of work, you're looking to see how your business is going to be impacted. And that's just good business. And I frankly don't know anybody in the AEC industry who does public sector work that doesn't check this out. Look at what the CIP is. And so, of course, in this case, if you're in building residential housing in Austin, I would think part of your own operations would be to go, in this case, page 794 of the budget, and to see the calculation of the fees. And, it seemed like it was supposed to be a shock to everybody when we had this fee increase, where we kind of knew all was going to happen. I mean, we knew that the price was going up. We knew that as land became more expensive, that the price was going to go up. And this fee was over a 5-year average. So, and I'm going to kind of get out there, but then I do have some questions. And I think even with the fee discussion on notice, I was kind of like, okay, I can go ahead and, people had projects in the hopper and that was based upon a fee, then maybe there's an adjustment there. But then the memo took a strange turn, and it went to a benchmarking study, and to bring the report back with findings of the benchmarking study and recommendations regarding parkland dedication fees that the council was to consider back in the future in April 2022. So, I think the mayor, we had a lot of great council members who weighed in on this. But I like the mayor's comment about opening Pandora's box. To the chair's comment as far as my involvement in 2015 and 16. I was a new board member. I just came in July, and we were thrown into this Parkland ordinance. I had a major accident in October. Came back from the accident and kind of hit this ground running. And what we were told by council at the time was, come back with the collaboration, come back with the build community and the natural built community, and come up with that compromise. And that's what those groups did. I just kind of sat there and made sure we got it through the finish line. Wasn't the ordinance that I wanted it stronger. Just to be clear for anybody who's listening, I wanted it stronger. I wanted it to wanted commercial in there. There was, I think, some of the calculations, but it was just that. It was a compromise. So I was really proud when the mayor said this opened. Why did the city manager's office do this? Because it opened Pandora's box, and it did open Pandora's box. And one of the other things I was really proud about the mayor of discussing was highlighting how our fees, that there was challenges with our formula, which is true. This was the compromise formula that council approved and ultimately in 2016 with, I think, second and third reading. And in specifically what the mayor had mentioned, again, which I'm very proud about, said using the price of apples and the price of oranges to determine the price of bananas. And he's absolutely right. The case of the prices of oranges and the prices of apples make for a cheaper price than what the price of bananas would be. And so, just so everybody is clear, that average of our apples and oranges is a little over $166,000 per acre, as what we receive in Parkland dedication. That's a 5-year average. Now that's different than what we spend for our parkland, which is $454,000 per acre. So that's the huge increase. How much we receive versus how much it actually costs us. Now, when we did that 9.4 acres for 1,000 residents, we can't do it. We can't keep to that measurement with those dollars. So I just wanted to make it clear for everybody that this wasn't some huge crazy jump. This was getting to a little bit closer to not even reality. This is getting somewhat closer. So, I was proud the council ultimately voted to indefinitely postpone this. I do have a concern that they're going to do something like bring in the strategic plan. If they bring in the strategic plan, then I hope that they will have more realistic and get rid of the 5-year average and actually do what we made. I guess what we should do is what the real cost of acquisition of 1 acre of parkland for that area. And they can zone it. They can do a 1 acre of parkland within the mile. But I'll tell you, it's going to bring a much higher price than what they had thought. So just kind of go out there. Now, the questions I do have for the director is there's a couple, I'm going to get them out there. Why did the Parks Board not learn about the memo until it was published in the Austin Monitor on October 12th? That's one. How did a Parkland dedication memo come about? That's two. And was there any person or organization asked us to look at Parkland dedication? That's three. Thank you.
Sure. Chair, do you want me to go ahead and answer?
Yes, please. Thank you.
So, Kimberly McNeely, Parks and Recreation Department, serving as the director. So the reason why the Parks and Recreation Board did not hear about this is I was invited to a meeting with other city leadership and RICA who expressed to me, and that was September 22nd, who expressed to me that they had, as I understood their concerns, that they were concerned that they had not been communicated to about the fact that the fee was going to increase the amount that it was going to increase, and that was troublesome to them because it would impact affordable housing for that group of individuals. And I was asked, is there something that you could commit to or that you could think about to be able to help them through this, the process? And could I explain why we didn't give them an opportunity to have a stakeholder engagement in those, that in the fact that the fees were increasing, because that's something that DSD would normally do. So I talked with our staff, and we went through the fact that as chair, vice chair, and the chair have explained that there is a formula, and that formula was something that was created 5 years ago, and that it's in code, and it's in the it is in the Parkland dedication operating procedures. And so when we talk about having a stakeholder process, I don't know that that would have been appropriate, but I did say it would have been appropriate as part of our ecosystem, right? They're part of our ecosystem. They're a stakeholder, for us to inform them of the fact that there was going to be a fee increase, in case, just to make them aware of that, and that I recognized if they're telling me that this is affecting affordability, I want to think about that and figure out what that might look like. I committed to them that I would meet with them on a quarterly basis so that we could have more conversations and make sure that we're talking back and forth and that we're having dialogue. And I told them that I would go back and think about what it is that they're saying. How can you help us? Because this is going to, these are my words, but this is going to wreak havoc on some of the developments that are in process. And so I went and I had proposed to my leadership an original idea, and that original idea was that we would consider a grace period to allow, because what I heard is we're in process and now our financials are a little bit messed up, a grace period to allow the development community to consider, or to be able to pay the 2021 fees for a period of time, a grace period of time, a couple of months. That was kind of the idea that I had, and then that way they could get their financials in order. That would have given them, more than a few months to know that the fees were increasing, and they could prepare for whatever, for January 1 moving on. And that we could, as a staff, we could benchmark ourselves against, what's happening in other cities, what's happening in our peer cities, what does this look like, and just have that information available to them to be able to share, kind of like a white paper that we would be able to share. And certainly we could share that with this board, we could share that with our council members, we could share that with whomever wanted to ask that, right? That becomes public record. And when I spoke to our leadership, that was something that sounded as though it would be an appropriate thing to consider. And I made, everybody knows, I don't know if everybody knows, but please know that you cannot have a fee waiver. I don't have the authority to waive fees. So in order to waive a fee, it's appropriate for us to have to bring that forward to council. And so I had some conversations with council aides conceptually about this original plan that I just told you about, to see whether or not it was something that could be supported. And I set forth trying to figure out how to balance the needs that leadership are telling me that are happening in the community, the needs of the development community and our real estate community. And obviously, we wouldn't have come to you in September and told you about the importance of Parkland dedication if I didn't believe in Parkland dedication. And through this process, things evolved. I checked in with my leadership, and things evolved beyond what the original plan was, and hence the items that you ended up seeing were the things that moved forward, that our leadership thought were an appropriate thing for consideration. And I'm part of that team. I accept responsibility. I had many conversations about what I thought, how I thought that the reaction would be, and it was still thought that perhaps this was something that needed to be considered, and so therefore it was brought forward to council at the decision-making process of the leadership team, of which I'm part of. So the reason why you received the information on the date that you did, because the decision was that we were going to be bringing it forward to the October 21st meeting. And so when the article came out, I attached that article and the memo that I had sent that was posted at some point in time late that Friday, so that you all were aware of the fact that it was happening. So board member, or Vice Chair DePalma, did I answer those questions? I feel like there's a third one that I did not answer.
I think there might have been two, but it doesn't lead me to another one. Is there anybody that told you
Oh,
not, or recommended not to bring it to the Parks Board
no,
first?
no,
Okay.
no, there was nobody who spoke to me personally. There's no one who had that conversation with me and who said not bring it to the Parks Board. I think you asked me, did anyone specifically, you asked me another similar question about.
Well, I asked you how did it come about, and then was there a person or organization that asked you to look, and you had mentioned RICA?
Yes, so
Was that
yes.
that organization?
Yes, sir.
So I appreciate that. It's shocking to me because for those who are really concerned about affordable housing, and we all certainly should be. And I've been advocating for affordable housing, and probably different than a lot of my colleagues here, looking for that density and to more multifamily. But when we talk about, in this instance, if they wanted certified affordable housing, then Parkland Dedication is exempt by the city of Austin. And to get that certified affordable housing I don't think it's the largest bar in the world. And so that's kind of one of my frustrations with it. And then so that's if you did smart housing, program, and then you have the affordability unlocked, which is how we incentivize development bonus program. Now, I don't know if Parkland fee dedication fees are part of that program or not. I don't think it is. It could be. I'm not sure. But for folks who are saying affordable housing and it's market rate housing, I'm just, and I guess I'm talking around, there's not a question here. I just don't see how the developer is going to say, you know what, here's the market rate, but because we didn't fully pay how we're going to use the infrastructure with Parkland, with additional folks, we're going to go ahead and take it below market rate. We're going to give you the ease, and we're going to make it a little bit more affordable, and we're not going to price it at market rate for new housing or for rentals. For some reason, I kind of think that whether it's a multifamily apartment or if it's a single family home or if it's a condo, they're going to price it at what the market bears.
Right.
And so if they're trying to save the additional monies, I think that's going somewhere else.
Okay.
And it's not going to the person.
I don't want to get into it. I mean, thank you, but I don't want to talk about housing, if that's okay. I'd rather, we're talking about the parks, and I
Well,
understand
it's
it's
on the
related.
Parkland dedication, about the
Right.
impact of Parkland, but I appreciate
Right.
that, Chair.
Sure, because
And board member or board chair, I do agree with I do think it's regrettable that affordability gets pitted against Parkland. That is regrettable.
And the other piece of that is, and this was noted at the council meeting, there are a lot of other fees that have gone up too. So why are we always going after parks when parks are so valuable? I want to real quickly, because there's two things. One, we have to, if we go past 10, we have to vote on that. And I think, I don't want to go very much past 10, but I do want to give other people in here a chance to say something about that instead of just Vice Chair DePalma and myself. So we may have to go a few minutes past. Would everybody be okay with that?
I want to stop at 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. In that case, does anybody want to say anything real quick before
Yes,
we?
please.
Yes, go ahead.
Who else will you be inviting to your quarterly meetings with Rika about Parkland dedication?
The quarterly meetings with Rika are not about parkland dedication.
Okay, well, who will you be inviting so it's not just Rika getting a quarterly meeting to plead their case with you without
Because
anybody
they are
else
not-
giving
they're not the only
context?
stakeholders.
Who would you recommend that I invite? I'm here for feedback.
You can invite Parks Foundation, you can invite us, you can
Yeah,
invite somebody else.
absolutely. We
who
can
are
certainly do
stakeholders.
that.
We can put together a list.
But they're not the only
The
stakeholders.
result of the first meeting was taking an action directly to council that, it has significant financial impacts with no kind of
Yeah.
input from any stakeholders other than Rika.
So
That's why I'm concerned about continuing those meetings without other parties and viewpoints present.
So I would appreciate the support of a Parks Board member. I would appreciate the support of a partner like the Austin Parks Foundation, certainly. And those are not off the table. When I offered that meeting, it was not to talk about parkland dedication. It was to be able to open the lines of communication so that I could better understand what their concerns were, and they could better understand where the department was coming from with regards. And you're absolutely right, Board Member Faust, it did evolve into something that was not particularly my specific intention. And so having other individuals who are part of that meeting to participate would likely be very helpful. Now, I don't know how, well, yes, it would be very helpful, or it would feel supportive to have something like that.
Yeah, and I would the procedures, I don't even want to get into the merits of it, but I think another reason, I don't really know your background and your development experience, it may be extensive. But, my experience with land use law and environmental law in Austin is that we have a very sophisticated development community, and they're not getting caught by surprise by fees. They're looking long-term at a lot of different projects, and that includes our affordable housing builders. And so I find the argument that it was a surprise to be hard to stomach, and especially since it was all in the budget and we have a robust public process. And in terms of, the effort that we go through as volunteers to take community input and approve the budget, and we now have this financial committee designed to do that, but to spend all that time and effort and then to have it, after approval, to have a run at pausing implementation is, it's hard to understand.
Yeah, so I shared this with Board Chair DePalma and Vice Chair DePalma and with Chair Lewis, that I am not, I absolutely understand that there's probably some trust building that needs to be done probably with this board and with some others. There's also some credibility things that have to be addressed. And I'm happy to work through those and to build back the trust and to build back the relationships with those individuals who I have found to be my supporters over time, and or have been our supporters, not specifically my supporters of the Parks and Recreation Department in the past. And so I fully admit that that is something that's going to have to happen. And I understand where the disappointment comes from. I understand where the frustration comes from. And, it's now up to me to be able to be inclusive with some individuals or whomever it is that we decide is most appropriate should those meetings go forward. And you're absolutely right. It's frustrating. I acknowledge all of that, right? So there's some work for me to do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you talking to us about this. As you can tell, there is a lot of frustration. So, and I